Don't forget to subscribe to Basement Tales. Just go on Apple, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts and hit that subscribe button. We release a podcast every Thursday. That way you'll be sure not to miss an episode. Welcome to Basement Tales with Sam Jackman, Charlie Einsman, Ed Grass, and Sandra Delancey. We have fun telling crazy but true stories about turning the worst possible property disasters into bags of money. Along the way, we'll pass along some important lessons to help you make cash on real estate. Sam and Charlie walked away from cubicle hell 25 years ago. Starting with no property, they created their own Clear Sky group of companies, sold hundreds of houses, bought dozens of rentals, and made millions in hard money loans. I'm Ed, a big firm litigator until muscular dystrophy made me find a hobby other than suing people. I miss it. Sandra's the normal person here with a real job plus some rentals. Her decades of friendship with the group, from office flunkies to property gurus, might help keep us all humble and focused on learning something. I wouldn't count on it.
I want to welcome everybody to this week's podcast. We have wholesale flipper extraordinaire Tom Zeeb with us. Tom has been wholesaling and flipping houses since 2002, 2003 timeframe. So he's been doing that. He's been featured on CNBC, Kiplinger's, Housing Wire, the Washington Post, Examiner, Financial Life Radio. He's been in the Scotsman Guide. And for those of you who don't know what the Scotsman Guide is, it's an actual publication for commercial lenders and residential lenders as well. So it's a pretty active communication. He's been wholesaling and building his business through presentations. He's got a presentation called Wholesaling 60 Days to Done. Another presentation, Wholesaling, the Rapid Cash Generator Masterclass, More Profits, More Freedom, which is one of these classes that you teach all the time, correct?
Yes.
Tom is also a best-selling author. How long has that book been out? About a year and a half?
Yeah, just about a year, just over a year.
Okay.
Year and a couple months.
So Tom is also a best-selling author. He's also president of Tractionria, which is how we know Tom. We've been sponsors of Traction, I think, for 3 or 4 years now as the private lender. So he's been running Tractionria for 10 years?
Coming up on 13.
Oh, God. So 13 years.
It's been a long time.
And
I've
he
been a
also
member for almost 20. It's amazing.
And he also is a host, has his own podcast as well. So Tom, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
Okay.
Tom seems a little high rent for us.
Oh no, he's high rent. He's high rent.
He's slumming it over here today. That's good.
I know.
I
I hear you're an attorney extraordinaire, so I think
that's what I pay people to say. That's true. I'm not usually, as Sam and Charlie can tell you, I'm usually extremely nice and relaxed, but I'm a little uptight today because my wheelchair van was like throwing parts off randomly at the Home Depot. So I'm a little irritated about that. But
you just seem a little wound up today, just quieter than usual.
That's okay.
Yeah. So if I'm mean, I apologize in advance. But we'll leave the niceness to Sam and Charlie as much as they can muster.
And so one of the things I want to do before I start asking Tom a bunch of questions is I want to tell a little story today that happened, and you guys can relate. So I work from my home, so I need to caveat that. And my home is obviously in Northern Virginia. And so it was about maybe 2:00 East Coast time. And I work out of my bedroom for the most part. And behind me is a bunch of houses, and we have 10 kids in our neighborhood. And so it's 4 families, 3 kids, 2 kids, and 2 kids. And so I hear all this carrying on and screaming and commotion. And out behind me is a setup of a 10-year-old birthday party. So they're having a 10-year-old birthday party, and it's a pool party, a water balloon party, and a slip and slide. And so you guys remember what a slip and slide is? So if you date things back a year ago, we were right in the middle of the COVID crisis. There were no birthday parties. There were people maybe having drive-by birthday parties, Zoom parties, leave your present at the doorstep. And so it was really fun to hear these kids and witness their birthday party. But me being the friendly neighbor that I am, I saw that slip and slide and I saw pizza. So what did I do? I got up out of my chair, I put on my Crocs, and I went next door, got me a piece of pizza, and guess what else I did? I took a couple of spins down the slip and slide. And
Do
so,
this
of course,
shows our different upbringings?
How do you feel now?
huh?
How do you go ahead?
Well,
Ed?
now that COVID is over, I had to take my, my every other day or 3 or 4 times a week shower because during COVID it was a shower once a week. So I just want to say that this was so refreshing to
That was
hear the
good.
kids, to see the kids, and to actually witness an actual live 10-year-old birthday party.
Just have the ibuprofen ready for the morning.
Yeah, so I kind of want to start our podcast with that story. Just to let
Well,
our
this
listeners know.
encapsulates how you be getting into real estate versus being a lawyer like me. You like to meet people, you have pizza, you join in the park. When I was a kid, I was the size I am now, and I loved slip and slide on television. I was so excited, and I went on it, and I slid maybe 6 inches until I jammed like 3 rocks into my chest. So, because I was just not the right weight capacity for the slip and slide. So that's what I think that may have been the incident that started my anger and brought me to being a lawyer. So I bet Tom had those happy, he's meeting the other kids and he's the, life of the party. And here he is, selling all this stuff. He must be, a nice guy.
Well, I think the best story, Tom, and can you please tell us the story of how you actually got started into the flipping / wholesaling world? I think people want to hear that story.
Yeah, pretty much by accident, right? The best way. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. My first deal was anything but a deal. I mean, I should put deal in air quotes. The first thing I ever bought before I even owned my own house was a 6-unit apartment building, a 6-unit brownstone, right? So a brownstone converted into 6 units in Brooklyn, New York, because they're so landlord friendly.
and they're lender friendly.
Yes. Oh, yes. And it was an absolute circus to get it financed. And that was back when I believe the application for the mortgage, they had me hold a mirror up to my nose. It fogged. They said, fine, you're approved.
Oh, that's funny.
Because I was right. I mean, you were talking early 2001.
Yeah.
They were just giving mortgages away. And I had no right having a mortgage on that. And I wound up buying a property with 6 hyper professional tenants that knew exactly what to do to never pay any rent.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Wow,
And
that's perfect.
all the due diligence that a buyer should do and that I thought I was doing, I guess I wasn't. And then I was just, massively screwed over once I owned it. My sister and I bought it together. So once we owned it, it was a mess. And the funniest thing was when we were trying to then sell it, dump it, get rid of it. And I was a hyper motivated seller. Nobody was able to, because suddenly there was, oh, well, you can't pass title like that because it's not legally a 6 years. And I called the attorney that settled it. I said, I don't understand. How was I allowed to buy it?
Yeah.
Well, not everyone always, checks things the right way.
Oh boy.
Like,
Okay. So moving away from that, then how did you get started into the flip business?
almost accidentally. I literally intended to rehab flip a property that I got in Dumfries, Virginia.
Okay.
I didn't bow out of the race. I said, let me just focus closer to home. At that point, I had come to the RIA that I now run. Wow, look at all these people doing deals. This is fantastic. There's buyers, there's sellers, there's rent. I mean, there were landlords, there were rehab, there was everybody. And I was kind of surprised that all that stuff that had only been in books had now come to life with real people. So this is incredible. And so I said, I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm no good as a landlord. I'm going to rehab because, man, I got so much experience at that. There was almost a disaster, but luckily somebody said, look, I want to buy that property off you, because I had announced that, hey, I have this deal under contract. And I said, what do you mean? You can't buy it. It's not done yet. He said, no. You don't understand, kid. I want to buy it off of you as it is, and I'll be the one to rehab it. And I thought, well, how can you do that? Is that legal?
Hold on. Had you closed on it yet?
No, it was just under contract. So
wow.
I announced I had a contract on this property, and
very cool.
I'm going to rehab it and make a killing.
And then, did you know the word wholesale at that time?
No, other than Sam's Club or Costco, no.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So I do nothing.
Wow.
So the guy said, "Look, kid, it ain't that hard. I'll walk you through it. Just assign it to me, and I'll pay you." I was, kind of, all right, sure. And then, bam, it was like 22,819, something like that. It was just shy of 23 grand, and it was that was mind blowing to me, guys.
And so, do you remember? How did you find it? Do you remember that?
Yes, bandit signs.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
they work. We had a great success story with the
Bandit signs.
I love bandit
In
signs.
fact, Charlie's son is
Yeah.
the one who delivered us our first bandit sign success.
Yeah. So
Those-
where was
Those
that?
are the
band-
ones, the thing that says, "Do you want to sell your house for
No.
cash?" And
Yeah.
it's just a phone number.
And it's placed. You try to place them legally, but it's a challenge.
Strategically.
Yeah.
I won't say legally, but I'll say
legally, strategically, legally.
But where did you where did you place it? Was it off of Route 1?
Yep, right on Route 1 down through basically from Woodbridge straight down to Dumfries.
Wow. That's great.
And I usually found I would do it weekly, and I usually found I could get about 8 or 9 up in an evening. Look, I'm a night owl, so I mean I definitely felt like a bandit at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night hanging bandit
Awesome.
signs.
That's
and
awesome.
I'm it was kind of funny after a while. There's those large oversized plastic signs. To make it easy, I took a cordless drill and I bought a magnetic drill bit and just a bunch of drywall screws, and I would put them into the telephone poles. Well, after a while, there was a cluster of screws at my exact height.
That's funny.
'Cause I wouldn't take a ladder or anything because it wasn't fast enough. And you kind of felt like a bandit, but it was all right. My first 2 deals came from bandit signs. My second wholesale deal closed for $5,000, and it was on the same box of bandit signs.
Okay, now, no. Now the next question is, did you actually order the bandit signs or did you hand write it?
Oh no, they were ordered.
Okay.
I didn't have the patience to do that. I think the box cost me, it was probably about $200 for a box of 100 bandit signs. They were about $2 each.
Okay.
And I look and let
So
me
what you're saying is bandit signs work.
bandit signs work.
Yeah.
I can't say they work consistently. They come and they go like all marketing. It's kind of annoying if you spend 2-3 weeks putting out bandit signs and you don't get any calls, but then suddenly you get 4 or 5 calls in a week, which aren't any good. But then 2 weeks later, you only get 1 call, and that's a winner. So it's like most marketing, right? You have to put up with the fact that there's some waxing and waning, some highs and lows, and you just have to deal with it.
Now, the next question I want to ask, and I've got a bunch of others, is one of the things that you are famous for, and I'm going to say famous, is your module on from tumbleweeds to marketing Stampede.
Yeah.
How and where did that come from? And that's pretty much the crux of how you help people find properties, correct?
Yeah. So where that came from was it came from the bandit sign frustration. Because I'm talking about the peaks and valleys, right? You have good weeks with 5 calls, and then you have 5 weeks with no calls. It's just and it was aggravating. I said, I got to stabilize this. Well, if every marketing technique is going to have its ups and its downs, then the only way to not really have an up and a down is to have many things with ups and downs, so that none of the ups and downs occur at the same time. It'll just statistically average out. So I started getting into direct mail because I didn't like dealing with leads that were kind of on the colder side of lukewarm. I mean, I know they don't come at you red hot, but I found with direct mail, I could go find somebody with problems, and then I could speak directly to that problem, and I could go scratch the itch, or I could go add salt into that wound and get them to talk to me. And I like that.
That's good. And then your direct mailer was focused at what, like out-of-town owners?
Out-of-state absentee owners,
Pre-foreclosures?
probates.
Oh,
Foreclosures for a while. I backed off of foreclosures. I backed off of foreclosures in Maryland when things changed.
Yes, right.
And
Because of the predatory laws?
yes,
Yeah.
what do they call that? PIFA, Protection of Homeowners in Foreclosure Act.
Yeah. That's what we talked about last week.
Do you know the depth of that? Can you tell us a little bit about that? I know it's a side note here, but we've brought it up in other discussions. And if you have the specifics of it, it'd be interesting.
Oh, I only wish I did, Sam.
Okay.
No, here's what happened. I read the law,
Yeah.
I mean, word for word. It probably put me to sleep a number of times. Right, Ed? I mean, reading the law is not always that exciting. And
Ed loves it. Ed loves it.
Ed
Yeah,
loves it.
I know.
I
It didn't
curl up
excite
by the fire with insurance policies. So this would
Okay,
be
wow.
like Steinbeck to me. But
That's right.
Yeah, slightly more exciting than insurance policies. But I read it and I said, wow, look at this. They are being so clinical
Yeah.
about the fangs in the legislation and legislating the font size I'm supposed to use and some of the words I'm supposed to have in
Oh,
there.
wow.
And yet there was, what I didn't see was anything that really told me how to comply properly. So the penalties were strong, but compliance wasn't there. Meanwhile, there's these people out there, so-called gurus trying to tell me what it says and how you comply. I'm going, how do you know that? There's no case law on it, when it first came out. And so I'm going, I don't trust any of this.
That's right.
And so it kind of became fun to me in a reverse way. But somebody from Maryland would call and are you in foreclosure? Yeah, I'm very sorry. I can't help you. Why don't you call your state senator?
Okay. Okay. So bandit signs, direct mail.
Yeah.
Right? And then you're using other things as well.
Yes, bandit signs, direct mail, networking, particularly with people in the trade. I mean, I'd like to get to know probate attorneys. They work with people that deal in probate all day long. So those are good sources. Things that are listed, but that there's something wrong with, like long days on market.
Yep.
I've had a rash of really good long days on market. I love long days on market.
That makes sense.
Long
days being 60 days, 90 days?
Long days being roughly double whatever normal is in that area.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. So right now, normal's maybe 25 days or whatever.
Yeah. If normal is 25 days, then I'm probably going to say 60, right?
Okay.
Because double would be 50 and whatever. I just like even things. So 2 months out.
All right. So basically, in your opinion, the name of the game on finding properties is just to create and cultivate multiple channels. And that's where it's at, correct?
Yes. Okay. So do you remember what was the book everyone loved? It was, forgive me if I get the author wrong. I think it was Robert Allen, Multiple Streams of Income.
Yep.
So hey, to stabilize your income, have multiple streams feeding this lake of income. Oh, great. Why don't we do the same thing in marketing? Have multiple streams of marketing, leads coming in, filling your pool of potential leads. That way you can get the deals to drip out of the bottom. And that was, I said, I think that applies to that. Let's do it that way.
That's amazing.
What if anything, are you finding is working now in this market when, the general understanding, I think, of people is that there's an undersupply of houses, prices are on the way up. Are there still distressed home buyers that want that kind of fast deal, or is there a much smaller group that you're able to market to these days?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm meeting landlord buy and hold investors who haven't collected any money for a year now, or whatever, 9 months, whatever, since the CDC decided they have control over evictions. But these guys want to sell, they just can't necessarily yet, or they want to, but it's not sure if you want to buy. So I think the pent up energy is there. Just wait until that opens up. I think there's a floodgate of tired landlords coming down the pike like that. My long days on market has gone up I think because when it's such a hot market and when it's supposed to be so easy to sell anything, when something sits for way longer than it ought to, the person wanted to sell, but they didn't. And so you can get in there and talk to them. I'm also finding to do just as good with people who, how would I describe them? Think of, like the old man yelling, "Get off my lawn."
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Kind of grumpy and I'll stay off my. He doesn't want to deal with anything. His house is appreciated over time. He's older. He needs to move on. Maybe doesn't quite recognize it, but man, if you can get in there and talk to that kind of person and unlock that. I was dealing with one the other day, and he doesn't want to talk yet, but he will. But it's good. And when he's ready, it'll be there. Fantastic. The house is a dump. Great. That's what I want. I want a dump. Dumps are good deals.
Yeah, we always say mold is gold.
Mold is gold.
That's one of our expressions.
Well, the reality of a repair job, right, or a renovation job is it doesn't matter if it's a little degraded or completely degraded. You still have to take it all apart and put it all back together again. So you're not going to incur any more costs with cosmetic repairs if it's
No.
really trashed up, or whether it's not.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll have to get some more stuff out of it.
When I bought my first home retail, I kind of wanted something I didn't need to do a lot too. I was working at the big law firm. My wife was a young physician. We're running around like crazy. So we figured, well, we'll pay a little bit more and get something ready to go. And it was, but we still ended up doing a ton of work on it because it's never exactly what you want. And in retrospect, particularly after doing some fix and flips, but even before then, I thought I should have looked for a piece of junk because I would have fixed it up anyway, just like the other one, and I would have gotten it a lot cheaper. So I think that applies that much more so if you know how to fix and flip, obviously.
Yeah.
Because people don't want that. I mean, most people don't want to deal with, fixing everything. They want it all nice and brand new when they show up for it, and they'll pay that premium, and they don't want to buy the dump, which you're still looking for.
Yeah. So the retail buyer wants to walk into perfection. But I think as investors, we've got to love a dump. We've got to love walking into a disaster because that's the value play. Yeah. And we make money from there being a value play. And it's the fact that somebody's owned the property a long time, they haven't fixed it up in forever. It's fallen apart. Well, that's not exactly what agents are dying to list because they're not going to get top dollar. It's kind of an embarrassing listing. They want to see them do work on it first, but then the person doesn't want to do work. That's when they call guys like me. They don't want to call investors because I'll take it exactly as it is and be happy about it.
Right. Yeah, no, that's funny that you brought that up because one of the things that we do is, when you mention agents is, one of the things that we do is if we see particular agents, if they have, let's say, a short sale listing that's a dump, we will actually email them and say, hey, look, we will buy that property from you. You can get both sides as a commission. And then once we renovate it, you will get the listing. And so they get a triple header.
Triple dip.
And so these agents love that. And that seems to work a lot.
Yeah. It's, if you think about it, it's no particular skin off your teeth when they're, let them double dip because it's being paid for off the seller side anyway on the buy. And then you're going to give them the extra incentive of listing it again, which you would probably have to do anyway, because where else are you going to meet all the pre-qualified people that want lovely, beautiful, ready to go homes?
What's your biggest challenge with the whole flipping business? Where do you find the biggest challenge?
I think it's just keeping the flow when you have enough. I was going to say investor ADD, but if I'm just honest, it's probably just plain old ADD. It's like, hey, look, there's something else and there's something else. It's some days I think people find it strange when I admit that because I seem like I should be hyper focused, but it's hard to sometimes keep the blinders on because it's so easy to start to go. People approach me with other types of deals, and even I've done that with I'm primarily a wholesaler and I'm best off staying in wholesaling. And yet every year and a half, I'm a glutton for punishment. I say, I want to do a rehab because I love, how do I put this? I love having rehabbed. I don't necessarily love rehabbing.
Yeah.
But I love looking back at it. I'm proud of it. And then, I got into rentals for a while after, it took over 10 years after getting burned on that New York City one. I didn't want to own anything. And then I started to, and then I was just irritated by it all the time. And I started selling them off. And this last one that we've sold off, it's not selling yet, but when it does, okay, great. But I don't love it. And I find myself, when I get away from what my core is, things fall apart. And so I'm better off sticking with what I know. And that's a personality thing. Everyone's going to be a little bit different. But for me, I understand that now. I should just not go, oh, I should do a syndication. Oh, I should get into apartments. Oh, I should, there's a million and one things you can do in real estate. But, look in the mirror, understand who you are, and then be strong enough to actually stick with it.
So what do you think of,
I was just going to say, brief, also partner, right? I mean, Sam and Charlie are a perfect example of this. Sam tends to be the guy who executes on the flip, and Charlie tends to be a guy who's doing the deals and hard money loans, and they could both do the other stuff, but they're sort of in their core. Yep. But it's nice when you have that partnership or relationship so that you can either work directly as a team as actual partners, or you have people that you work with regularly. So you can, be the most favored nation or most skilled, the comparative advantage in that area. My best thing is to be a mean lawyer. I had a couple rentals and I did a couple fix and flips, and mostly because I just wanted to learn something new and have fun. But that's definitely not the best use of my limited time.
Yeah.
So sorry, Sam, I cut you off there.
Well, what I was going to ask Tom is we see a lot of solicitations. In fact, we got one today. Charlie received it, and the guy's telling us that he's building effectively ground up construction right where your property on Florida is for $144 a square foot. He's saying he's competing. We should buy his wholesale deal. He can do it at these insanely low prices in the district when he constructs properties. How are you keeping prices under control for renovations, or how are you seeing, people who are affiliated with you keep those prices under control? What's the core, especially with, it's not going to be a shock to anyone to hear that lumber has gone up.
Yeah, right. Lumber for a while it was copper piping, right, or it was PCV pipe. Everything was at some point going through its little bubbles. Yeah, lumber's up. I'll tell you, I was very happy on my last rehab to have really gotten some awesome pricing down. And a large part of that was Tractionria's relationship with the Home Depot. We got some ridiculously good rates on the cabinets. They knocked another 20% off just for being a Tractionria member. Think about 20% on, $7,000 worth of cabinetry or something. It adds up. I'm also particular about certain little things, like the finish on the cabinetry. I was kind of shocked. I put in white shaker cabinets, like everybody seems to want.
Everybody's got them. Yep.
Yeah, I'm a little tired of it. I don't think it's that great, but whatever. Give the market what it wants. But when I went and actually looked at the finishes on 3 different levels of cabinetry, there was no difference.
Right.
You can maybe tell when you were sitting there looking at them next to each other, but you would never know afterwards. So I went, well. No. When I asked them, they said, well, yeah, we can knock about $1,200 off if you use the lower finish. And I went, the lower finish looks pretty darn high end, and it's fine.
Yeah.
That stuff adds up. And it's not that you're cutting corners, just that you're being conscious of certain things.
Mm-hmm.
I also took advantage of, look, some things are hot, but some things aren't. There was I made sure I had my contractor push one of the suppliers on, hey, be hesitant. Just a little negotiation. Let's be hesitant. Ask for the quote, but then say, I said, blame it all on me. My client doesn't like the price, and push for 10, 15%, 20% off. And almost every time we pushed on something, we got a gratuitous discount just for.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, that's a good segue into, you mentioned Home Depot, but just as importantly, you mentioned Tractionria.
Yeah.
Tractionria is your RIA that you own, well, not own, but you run. It's tractionreia.com for those of you out there. How do you like running the RIA? Because you've been doing it, you said, for 30 years, right?
It's a labor of love. I didn't bring Traction up to toot my own horn, but hey, but thanks for tooting it for me, Charlie. Look, Tractionria, I was a member of it long before I ran it, and basically probably 5-6 years. And then when the fellows that ran it were looking to retire and move on, they said, hey, do you want to take over? And I said, no, that's ridiculous. My God, that's a lot of work. Why would I want to do that? And then, but I was, they said, well, you kind of, in many ways, grew up here. You kind of came of age here. You went from job, 40 hours a week, JOB, to wholesaler here. Don't you want to give back? And I went, oh, all right, you kind of have a point. Let me take a look.
Oh,
so my wife and I took it over in, 2008. I remember because she was pregnant with my firstborn son, who came out in January 2009, and she actually went into labor at the January 2009 meeting. So yeah, it's been coming on 13 years.
Wow.
As we say in 2021, and I love it because I love helping. It's become addictive to me to help other people escape.
Yeah, because we've been coming for about 7 years now.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, it's been that long.
I've been a guys a long time.
Yeah. And the reason I know this, Tom, and I know you might not believe this, is I've got every single monthly newsletter that you guys have put out since I've been coming, and I've got it in a binder that thick.
Ooh, collector's items.
Yeah,
he's a collector. Charlie's a collector.
I'm a data guy. I'm a hoarder.
I got you.
I like to collect these things, and so that's how I know exactly how long we've been coming.
Nice.
Even for us, it's been very valuable just from meeting people and talking
yeah.
to people and just being around people that are like-minded,
Being in the
whether they're
community.
successful or not. It's just really nice.
I tell people, look, it's the people you meet,
Yeah,
and you have no idea how long that's going to last with you.
that's right.
Because
Yep.
there's people I met, I mean, years ago that I'm still friends with, business friends, but also personal friends that I know from Tractionria in the early days, even before I ran it. And then now it's more and more. It does make a difference. The other nice thing is I view it as cross training. I always tell people, spend about a year with us, and you're gonna see rehabbing and wholesaling and landlording and commercial, and so some months you're going to see something that fits you like a glove. You should go after that. Other months you're going to see something where you go, oh man, I can never see myself doing that.
Right.
But that's good too, because now you know what road not to follow. And so in many ways it shortcuts you and gives you that focus, because you guys all know there's a ton of different ways of making money in real estate.
Of course,
you just gotta choose what fits you best.
That's right. And that's just very similar to, a lot of times when you go to college, you don't everyone has a major, but you actually go to college to find out what you don't want to do. And eventually that sort of leads you into what you hopefully will like.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so that makes a lot of sense.
And rather than spend $250,000 on college to figure out what you want to do, like, hey, $200 a year, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's certainly a value point. We've had a great experience.
Oh, that's
there.
great.
The Home Depot benefit is accrued to us, as well as all the relationships.
Yeah. And it wasn't just that, guys. It was,
Nice.
I hope you use the appliance program too, because what wound up happening was all the appliances I bought for the place, I think they dropped $1,200 or $1,300 off the appliances. I said, well, that was like getting the range for free.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Wow.
That is great.
Well, at the end of the day, that's all profit, because it comes right to the top line.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing. But one thing I wanted to ask you, and it relates to your comment about there's sort of so many things to do, and there's being a wholesaler and a flipper. How do you, because I haven't seen the wholesaling side as much. How do you, when you're trying to, you find all right. So you've found the property, which in many ways is the hardest thing to do. And you've got a deal, and money can be made on this. And in terms of a rehab, but like you're saying, you want to wholesale out of that to somebody who will do the rehab. And, on the one hand, you could think, well, I want to squeeze every last dime out of it as I can as a wholesaler. On the other hand, you have to make it enticing enough that a rehabber is going to want to do it. Plus, you don't want to get anybody into a bad deal intentionally, because you're going to see them at RIA and they're going to say that thing, you thought it would go out at blah, 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 and you were off by $80,000 or whatever for reasons you should have known. Even whether it's true or not, they may. But how do you slice and dice that deal?
Yeah.
And so that, I'm getting paid for my effort of getting that deal, and the rehabber's happy, they're going to make some money, but I didn't give up all the profit. Maybe that's why sometimes you're enticed into doing the rehab, because you don't want to give up the profit. But how do you slice and dice that?
Yeah, good question. It's my mantra that there is, you've got to leave meat on the bone for the buyer. And in fact, and the meat you leave on the bone, it's got to be the same. You're basically selling to them at the same price they would buy at if they were the ones doing the negotiating with the seller.
Yeah.
Which puts the onus on me then to do a better job than that negotiating. And I like to say it's by at least $5,000, right? I want to have at least a $5,000 wholesale fee, usually a lot higher, but that's my bare minimum to get in there at. So I'm looking for, like, when you guys buy, you have, you kind of have a number that you want to buy at. And you don't.
We have a margin we're looking for.
Yeah, you have a margin you're looking for. And so, boom, if you guys are my buyers, I know what I know how you guys buy. Well, for me to be able to sell to you, I got to do better than that. How much better than that can I do is my wholesale fee. I told you, I like it not to be less than $5,000. The lowest I've gone is $3,500. The highest I've made on a wholesale is $65,188.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's a big number.
That's a big number. But buyer wanted to buy at their price, and I was able to get through good negotiation and the circumstance and the good marketing, right? It all brought it down to, it created that big of a spread. I mean,
no matter what the spread is, that's where you're creating the value.
Yes.
That value is in the spread.
Values in the spread. So when I teach people the negotiation, I said, you really got to listen up, because this is how you figure out your fee. Because I'm not an agent. I don't need 6% or 5% or whatever. I'm not stuck with any sort of. It's literally this is what my buyer will buy for, what they're happy at. How much better than that can I do? So you learn how to negotiate better than that, and that's your fee right there.
Yeah, and even for us, like some wholesalers will make the fee off of the renovation, because a lot of times you probably teach them to buy at 70% of the ARV minus the renovation.
Yep.
Let's say that's a rule of thumb, even though we get it, it can vary. So, but our buying criteria most of the times could be we'll buy at 70% of the ARV. So, and we'll include that renovation in that 70% number.
70%, fine. So you're technically at a higher number minus.
Yeah, right, exactly. So a lot of times the wholesale fee really, in a nutshell, if you use that model, is really the renovation.
It's rolled in. Yeah,
it's rolled in. Yep. Because for us, buying at a 70%, let's say it's Northern Virginia, buying at a 70% ARV, man, there's no renovations that are that much that are going to really hurt our profit margin.
No.
So what are you saying, Charlie, about sharing? And so the wholesaler comes in, maybe it's because it's a little unclear what the out sale price is going to be. And you say, look, you just give me the wholesale deal, but you get X% of the profit. Is that an option? I mean, obviously you'd have to really trust each other.
No, I've never heard of that. I mean, we have a program. We have a program so we developed this program a couple of years ago. It's called the Wholesaling Joint Venture Program, Tom, and you're going to appreciate this. So what we do is any wholesaler that we deal with, we'll give them, obviously they're going to tell us what they think the ARV is and what they think the renovation is. So what we do is we say, okay, wholesaler, we're going to give you $10,000 for every property you bring our way. Mm-hmm. Now, if you say the ARV is $300,000, I'm going to keep you to that. So if we get, let's say, $320,000 for it, then we will split the 20,000 over the 300,000, 50-50. So if you're saying it's 300 and we get 320, we'll take that 20 and we'll give you 10,000 on the front side. In this case, it's 10,000. We'll give you half of it on the back side. And so that's been pretty positive. But I mean, we're not really joint venturing. We're just giving them an incentive to keep their ARV where it's supposed to be and to keep the renovation. Because one of the biggest things that we see with wholesalers is that there's two things they're not good at. Number one, they overinflate the ARV, right? And the second thing is they underestimate the renovation to make the deal look a little bit more juicy than it really is. And so we just like to keep them sort of honest to make sure that, at the end of the day, we're both making money.
Yep. Yeah, I like to. I tell them, when I teach people how to do it, it's these numbers have to be right. So you've got to prove your comps, and you should average out what the comps are. That way, it's not just here's a comp, because that may or may not be a comp. But if you have 3 or 5 of them, now we can come up with an average, and you can have a strong argument that that's the price. And then the repair estimate, you can't lie about it, and it can't be best case scenario. You got to look at it and say this is what it is, and then when you send photos to your buyers, that's the proof, because they're going to look at it. Right. I mean, you guys can look at photos and know whether or not, is it 40 grand or is it 80 grand worth of rehab? You know from the photos. So you can't kind of fool people on that. And because that's the number one problem I see. I get, I'm on all these wholesalers lists. I'm thinking that's junk. That's junk. That's junk.
Exactly.
That's not true. And then you have no trust in the person anymore.
Yeah, so exactly. And that's what happens. And so this is the story that Sam was trying to tell earlier in the podcast, is that we received an email. And of course, we can't mention names, but it's one of your competitors who's teaching wholesaling classes. I'm just going to leave it at that. And so the deal was they were trying to wholesale a lot in Capitol Heights, Maryland, a lot maybe. And so what they are trying to say is obviously they want the asking price and they're giving you the ARV. That was fine. But they're trying to say that they're going to build a brand new house on this lot for $100,000. And the lot hasn't even been, there's not even a foundation on the lot, right? You're going to build a brand new house, 1,100 square feet for $100,000, and
no connections to sewer. No connections.
Yeah. Good luck figuring that out. Who are you going to get to do that?
Right. And so I sent back an email that said, "Wow, I need that crack pipe you're smoking."
The guy wrote back. He says, "Yeah, it's a good crack pipe."
But people know me. They know me that I like to joke, right? I mean, I'm kind of zingering you at the same time, but at the same time, I'm joking to let you know. I mean, it's a friendly joke. It wasn't anything, and it was pretty funny. But that's an example of a wholesaler email, like you said. That's crap. That's crap. That's crap. That's crap.
Yeah. Then he's telling us how he's he's got someone else, he's got some fictional repairs or building being done elsewhere. And
But again, it's your reputation, right? So next time I even see that email address, guess what happens? I'm deleting. I'm not even open.
oh yeah,
Gone. Yeah, that's
Going in
what
the shit can.
I debate why why does that happen so much? And it's people don't seem to care about the reputation.
Yeah.
They get sometimes it could just flat out be dishonesty. It could flat out be incompetence. I think that's common too. But sometimes there's something else I've seen with a lot of these people go to these big events and everyone's got to be a big swing and whatever, and everyone's got to kind of one up, a lot of one-upmanship. And so next thing you know, they're obsessed with, well, I'm a wholesaler. I make 50 grand on every deal, no matter what. And so now they're trying to always make 50 grand no matter what, but the numbers don't support it. You kind of got to roll with the punches. Sometimes you'll make 50, sometimes you'll make 100, sometimes you'll make 5.
Right.
And everything in between. And so you just have to roll with it. You can't, I think sometimes worrying about kind of, big men on campus usually screws everybody up.
I agree.
And they're shooting themselves in the foot because now buyers like you guys, capable buyers that have the money together, that know what you're doing, you don't even want to go near their deal.
That's
You
right.
don't want to go near them.
We don't
So
deal with
it's very short-sighted thinking.
It is short-sighted. I agree.
Well, it gets back to that wanting to maximize your profit to everybody else's detriment. I mean, some people have that view of business that it's a zero-sum game. So, and I suppose if you only have one wholesale, it makes some economic sense that you just maximize that. Some poor schlub tries to buy it and rehab it and loses their shirt, and you're like, well, I got mine. And as opposed to entering the business and making a good profit and making your name and your reputation, and it takes more time, but then the deals come to you, and the rehabbers are going to take you seriously, and you can do your wholesale deal. Once you get the property, you can do it in no time. So you want it to be a win-win. I mean, hopefully it's a win for the home seller. If there's a wholesaler, the rehabber, everybody's making some profit off of that and is happy. Everybody
should be very happy with what they're making and how they're making it, and not that no one should feel slighted by it. I mean, most of the time, my buyers, rehabber buyers, are like, hey, congratulations, you did good again. Yep, because they don't know exactly how much I'm making until I've chosen them. And now they know because they signed the assignment contract, they see the original contract. But it's fine because there's no insult there, because they also notice I haven't taken anything off of their side of the plate. I haven't reached across the table and grabbed at their chips.
That's right.
Right. Well, they're adding a lot of value, as you said. Doing that rehab is a lot of work, and so they're going to need to make some money for doing that work.
Yes, and I'm conservative with my idea of value. And after a while, you get a reputation for that. Like, okay, Tom said this is the value. He's proven it in comps, and he's usually a little tight on that. We'll do better. Great, but I want them to be thinking that way. And then I tend to be, maybe the only time, a little liberal on the repair estimate to make sure that, it doesn't look like, it's not best case scenario.
Right.
It doesn't have to be absolute worst case scenario, but it's got to be reasonable case scenario. And then people start to go, your numbers are always right. And I can usually beat Tom's numbers. I'll spend less on the rehab than he says, and I'll get a little more than he says. Well, good. Now they're thinking about it the right way. So everyone's numbers, rather than, he said it's only going to be 30 grand to rehab it, but it's actually going to cost 100. That nobody would buy from me again.
It's not even in the ballpark. Yeah.
Doing one deal is great, but that's not a business. That was just, hey, I won the lottery one time. If you want to be able to be in business, you got to do things again and again and again. And it's nice to be working with the same people.
Right.
Well, Tom, it's been wonderful having you on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned a lot, which is good. Maybe I can stop being an evil lawyer someday. This is exciting.
This is great. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
And we'd love to have you on again.
So if you have questions, if you have comments, the listeners out there, send it to yourstory@basementtales.com, and we'll be happy to open the discussion.
And then if we want to look up, I have not been to a Tractionria, but that's Traction, like Traction, REIA.com. And I assume I could sign up there or find out schedules and things like that.
Find out schedules, lots of goodies, some nice freebies to download, gifts that you'll get a lot out of. And then we'll send you quite interesting emails and videos that are little kind of micro trainings that help move you along, motivate you, and train you along the way.
Yeah, and last but not least, Tom's also a founder of Traction Real Estate Mentors. So his website is www.tractionrealestatementors.com. So he's mentoring investors as well, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.